Everyone in town knew Kyle Raymond. He wasn't the kind of man you forgot easily. Tall, broad-shouldered, quiet, and always carrying a calm intensity that made people second-guess approaching him. Nobody could pinpoint exactly what made Kyle seem so dangerous. He wasn't a criminal, had never raised his voice in public, and rarely interacted beyond polite greetings. Still, people stayed cautious around him. It all started one summer afternoon in downtown Tucson, Arizona. Kyle had just finished his shift at a security firm and walked into Joe's barbershop for a trim. As he pushed open the door, a group of young men sitting on the porch went silent. They'd been loud moments earlier, laughing and throwing crude jokes at passing girls, but the moment Kyle stepped into view, the atmosphere changed. Not a word was said, but every single one of them lowered their eyes. Inside, Joe smiled and motioned toward the seat. "The usual?" he asked. Kyle nodded. "Yeah," buzzed the sides. "Trim the beard." Joe had known Kyle since he was a teenager. He remembered the boy who used to stutter when ordering a soda and wouldn't make eye contact with girls. But after returning from 6 years in the Marines, Kyle was different. He wasn't mean, just sharp, alert. Every move he made was measured, intentional, like someone who had seen too much and learned too fast. That day, as Joe worked the clippers around Kyle's jawline, a local cop named Officer Ray Carter stepped inside for his own cut. Carter noticed Kyle and nodded. "How's life treating you, Raymond?" Kyle didn't smile. He gave a short nod back. "Peaceful." Ray chuckled awkwardly and sat down across the shop, clearly choosing his words. The room felt heavy until the sound of the clippers picked up again. Kyle didn't seem aggressive, but there was something about the way he looked straight into people's eyes when they spoke, unflinching and quiet, that made even seasoned officers choose their words wisely. It wasn't long after that encounter that Kyle found himself reluctantly involved in a small-town incident that would put his dangerous reputation to the test. A young woman named Emily Brooks, who worked at the gas station near Kyle's apartment, had started her night shift. Around 10:45 p.m., a man in a gray hoodie walked in. He wasn't from town, no one recognized him, and he had the kind of twitchy energy that screamed trouble. Emily watched him from behind the counter as he paced the aisles for too long, glancing around as if waiting for the place to clear out. Kyle, who always filled up his tank after work on Wednesdays, happened to walk in just as the man stepped up to the counter, whispering something to Emily that made her freeze. From the door, Kyle sensed the tension. He didn't shout or run. He simply walked slowly toward the register, eyes locked on the man, posture calm but imposing. His shoulders were squared. His jaw was set. When he reached the counter, he placed his wallet down beside Emily and looked at the man. "You okay?" Kyle asked her. Emily gave a barely noticeable nod, but her eyes screamed fear. The man turned toward Kyle, his hand still tucked into his hoodie pocket like he might be hiding something. Kyle didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. He stood motionless, his eyes locked on the man's, like two animals sizing each other up. The man stepped back slightly. "Mind your business, man." Kyle tilted his head. "This is my business now." The voice was soft, even respectful, but it carried weight, like someone who didn't need to yell to get his point across. There was no bravado, no posturing, just quiet certainty. The man looked at Kyle for a long moment before pulling his hand from his hoodie. Nothing was in it. He backed up, mumbled something about wrong place, wrong time, and walked out the door. Emily collapsed into the stool behind the counter. "Oh my God! I thought he had a weapon." Kyle didn't respond right away. He just picked up his wallet, paid for his gas, and turned to leave. Before walking out, he looked at her and said, "Always trust your gut." The police picked the guy up a few hours later. Turned out, he had a knife in his boot and a record in Phoenix. The story spread around town like wildfire. People started whispering things like, "Kyle stared a guy down without lifting a finger," or, "He didn't even blink and the dude folded." But what really made Kyle seem dangerous wasn't just that moment. It was the combination of things. 4 key behaviors: that turned a quiet Marine vet into someone everyone respected, feared, and admired. First, it was the way Kyle moved. Every step had purpose. He didn't fidget, didn't rush. He had mastered the art of being still in a world full of nervous motion. Whether he was walking into a store or crossing the street, people noticed the way he carried himself. Calm confidence always made him seem like he had control over any situation. Second, he didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. Kyle didn't speak unless he had something worth saying. That silence made his words carry more weight. Even in regular conversation, people leaned in when Kyle opened his mouth. He never gossiped, never bragged. That made his words sound more like observations from a man who'd already figured out the world. Third, Kyle made eye contact that was neither aggressive nor submissive, just direct. He didn't look away when people stared. He wasn't trying to intimidate. He just refused to flinch. In a town where people usually glanced at their phones or shuffled their feet in awkward small talk, Kyle's unwavering gaze was powerful. It made people wonder what he knew that they didn't. And fourth, perhaps most important, was his restraint. Kyle had the build and background to do serious damage if provoked. But he never did. He never reacted emotionally, never raised his hand or his voice. That kind of restraint, when you know someone is capable of so much more, is what truly made him dangerous. Weeks passed after the gas station incident, and Kyle's legend grew quietly. He didn't seek it, didn't revel in it. But people changed around him. Strangers held the door open. Teenagers who once tagged fences near his apartment began nodding respectfully when he passed by. Even Officer Carter, who had once scoffed at Kyle's silence, began consulting him during community meetings. One evening, a group of high school boys approached him while he sat alone at the park. "You really stare a guy down at the station?" one of them asked, half laughing, half nervous. Kyle looked up from his book and nodded. He made a choice. I helped him make a different one. The boys looked at each other in awe. "How do you do it?" another asked. "Like, be that calm all the time?" Kyle smiled slightly. "I've seen worse. And I learned a long time ago that making noise doesn't make you strong. Control does." One of the boys nodded slowly. "You ever get scared?" "Every human gets scared," Kyle said. "Difference is, some of us know how to use it." The boys walked away, whispering to each other with a mix of respect and fascination. Kyle returned to his book, the late evening sun casting a golden glow across the park. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He wasn't trying to be feared. But in a world full of people who post their bravado online and act tough in crowds, Kyle Raymond stood apart as a real one. A man whose presence alone was enough to change the mood of a room. Dangerous, maybe, but only to those who thought chaos was strength. In the quiet strength of his posture, in the silence between his words, in the unshakable,